Hello everyone and welcome to Community Force webinar. As you all know, my name is Mehreen Mirza and I will be facilitating today's session. I'll also be answering questions during the Q&A break. So please do not hesitate to ask any questions during that session. We want this to be as interactive and helpful as possible for you. Also, we have Christine Smith, who will be our trainer for today and will walk us through all the key areas under this topic. Now, since some of you have not joined, I'd like to show you a few key features to help you make the most of this webinar. Now, as you can see, there is on the right-hand side of your screen, there is a panel with an orange arrow. You can use this arrow to expand or collapse this panel. Also, to ask questions, simply type in the question in the question area and click on send or enter. We'll do our best to answer your questions and as many questions as we can, either by typing them in or during the Q&A break. If I miss out on answering any of your questions, we'll follow up with the answers through email after this webinar. Also, a PDF copy of today's presentation is present in the handout section. Click on the handout title to download it. The handout also includes help guides and knowledge-based articles for each of the topics that we are covering today. Now, for a smooth experience, everyone has been placed on mute to minimize any background noise. Let us see how many of you have joined. Okay, while everyone is joining, let's get started. The topic for today is setting up your evaluation process for the one-to-many application process. Now, with that, I'll now hand over the mic to Christine. All yours, Christine. Enjoy your session, everyone. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Maureen, for that fine introduction. So, of course, to get started, we're going to be, in today's webinar, we're going to be covering some setup information in regards to the evaluation process for the one-to-many application. So that's when you have one application with multiple funding sources attached to it. And so we're going to show you how to create your review committees, how to create those tasks, automated scoring, and then pretty much the whole setup for that review process before you turn it over to the committee members. And then we'll also talk a little bit about the show for fund feature. So who's going to benefit from today's webinar? Well, this is going to be any of you administrators who are responsible for setting up the review task cards. If you have a scoring rubric, we'll be going over that. It's the same as a task card, so we'll discuss what those are and why you would need one. And then again, it's like I said, this is a one-to-many application process. So we're going to be predominantly talking with our scholarship users, since you're the ones that have multiple fundings usually. You have one application form, but with that application form, you've linked multiple funding sources to award your applicants. So the topics we're going to be covering today are going to be hiding applicants' names and questions from your review committee, going over that show for fund features so that you can hide questions from the review committee based on specific funds. We'll talk about creating task cards, and then we'll take a quick break. And then after that break, during that break time is when Maureen will review the questions that came in during that first half of the session. Then after the break, we'll talk about how to create your committees, how to make those assignments to your committees. Once you've made the assignments, how to notify them. And then also a feature that is outside of the reviewers process in regards to automated scoring, how to set that up on your application as well, so that it automatically scores based on how they've answered questions in the application form. So the first topic we want to talk about is hiding applicants' names and questions. So prior to turning it over to your review committee, you'll want to look at your application form and determine, are there any questions within your application process that your reviewers do not need to see? Like maybe it's some questions you're gathering for internal staff use, but maybe it's information that it doesn't need to be seen by the reviewers and you want to hide it. Or maybe there's information you have a blind review where your reviewers are going in, you don't want them to know the name of the applicants because you want this to be a very unbiased review process, especially for scholarships. If it's somebody they know, then they may not be as fair in their determination. So you don't want them to know who it is they're reviewing. So you want to hide any identifying information. So like their address, their personal names, any identifying their parents, anything that identifies them. When it goes to the review committee, you don't want them to see that information. So there's a couple of different areas that you can go to hide this data. So let's go to the site here and talk about this. And this is something, if you're live, you can hide this from your reviewers because this is something that's not affecting the applicants. It's not hidden from the applicants as long as you don't accidentally hit the hide from applicants. But this is something that is hidden from the reviewers only. So I'm logging in now as a admin, the admin on the site, and going into my application form. So I have a one-to-many demo application here that I'm going to go into. And then once I'm here, the first thing I want to look at is under application settings. And both of the areas here where you're hiding questions is under the application settings area. But the first one in regards to hiding, so of course when we are on the site or a reviewer goes to the site, let me backtrack here a little bit, and they open up a report. So when I say they open up a report, they see this name here. So they have the applicant name, they have the email. So within the application settings, general information, there's an area where you hide this name from them. So in application settings, under general information, so when they go to that report, all they're going to see are numbers. When they do a print preview of the application form, like when you do that preview application, you see a name at the top of the page, that will just be a number. And so to turn that off or on so that they do not see that, there's some toggles here in the general information. So I'm in application settings, general information, going to the bottom of the page, and there's a toggle here, show applicant to committee. If you do not want them to see that name in the report screen, like the one I just showed you, you need to put this to no. And then that will hide it from the committees and it will change everything to a number. It'll create a number, and then that's what they'll see in regards to the applicant in the reports. Now, when it comes to fields within the application form itself, maybe you asked a question, what's your first name, what's your parents' name, what's your address? This does not hide that. We'll show you that here in a minute. You have to go to the specific question and hide it within that specific question. This is just on the reporting functionality within our system. It changes it from a name to a number. So you don't see that applicant name and they don't know the name of the individual they are reviewing. Now, don't confuse that over here with the show application to committee. What this does is this shuts off the entire application to your committee members and they cannot do any more reviewing. So once you're done with the entire review process, if you have multiple tasks that you're reviewing, then everything is 100% complete. You never need to go, your reviewers never need to go into this. You're done with that review process. You don't want them to see it on their screens going forward in future periods. Then you can come here and turn this to no, and that will turn off the whole review process for the entire committees. So but of course, if you click it now, they will not be able to do any reviews because they won't be able to see anything. And then there's two other toggles I want to talk about that's part of the review process, since that's what we're discussing today. And when you're looking at a print preview of an application form, and in that print preview, each section is sectioned out, and then it has the questions, it has the section title and the questions for that section. Well, in the review process, you can actually have all of the reviewer tasks appear to all of the other reviewers so that they can see what other reviewers, how they're answering questions, what review committees they're on, what tasks they're being assigned, and how they're answering those questions. Each reviewer for each task that they're assigned in has a separate box with their name at the top, the reviewer's name, and the questions they're answering and how they answered them. Now, this is for you to, if you activate this, then all the reviewers can see those sections in the application form. If you don't want reviewers to see each other's information, then you can put this to no, and then they won't be able to see that. They won't have those separate sections to be able to see how other reviewers reviewed each other. We also have another thing that makes your review process very transparent. If you want your applicants to be able to see the reviewer's information, who the reviewer was, what was the task they reviewed, and what was the questions they answered, and want the applicants to be able to see that, then you can turn this on as well. And then that gives you a very transparent, the applicants can see how the reviewers reviewed them, they can see who the reviewers are in their process. And that's only if you turn this on though. This one is for reviewers to see reviewers. This one is for applicants to see reviewers. So if you don't want either one of them to see each other's, then you want to make sure you put both of these to no. And then of course, anytime you make any adjustments, you do want to make sure and click save. I'm going to go ahead and hit exit because I don't want to save anything on my screen at the time. And then that's how you handle those functionalities within the general information. Now, you've turned off the applicant name, so it's no longer going to show in the reports, but how do you turn off specific maybe sections? Or maybe you want a whole section, maybe you have a section of personal information, you want to turn that whole section off for your reviewers. You're seeing here, I don't see any place on this screen, so how do I do that? Well, to turn an entire section off, so let's say I wanted the entire section. So if you turn the entire section off, they can't see any of the questions within that section. So if you want to do it just on a specific question, then you do not want to turn the section off so it's no longer visible. But in this case, let's say personal information, I don't want them to see it. So I'm going to come over here to this edit and go into the section edit. And within the section edit, if you scroll down, you're going to see hide from reviewer. So if I put this to yes, then all of my reviewers across all of my committees, no matter what committee they're on, will not see this section on their dashboard. If I leave it to no, then they will see it. So that's how you do, and then I would put this to yes. And then once I put it to yes, you would want to make sure and save it so that that data has been saved. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to go ahead and exit. But that's how simple it is to hide the entire section. So then when they're doing the review, they're not even going to see that section whatsoever. But let's say I want the section to stay intact, but maybe there's questions within the section I want to hide. So how do I do that? Well, you do need to click on the section name here to drill down to the specific question or questions that you wish to hide. And once you're on this question area for that section, you'll notice over here a couple of columns hidden from reviewer. So anything that's marked yes means when the reviewer previews an application form and looks at the applicant's information, they will not see any question that says hidden from reviewer yes. So they won't see this first name, preferred name, middle name, last name, address 3. But maybe I'm looking at this and maybe I don't want them to see any of their address information or their city or their state or anything like that, because that might still give them, or even their phone number, that might still give them some information that they may know who this applicant is. So how do I hide it? Well, up here in more options, you're going to see a hide, unhide from reviewer at the bottom of that listing there. Depending on what this column says, it will do the opposite. So right now this says yes in this first name field. If I was to select this app name, this question, and then hit hide, unhide, it's going to put that to, it's going to open it up again. So they'll now be able to see it. It's going to unhide it. So it's going to do the opposite of what's there currently. So for instance, if I select here, I'm going to go address 1, address 2, 1 and 2 here. Address 3 is already hidden, and address 4, if I accidentally select address 3, see it says yes right now? So it's already hidden. But if I'm selecting these and I accidentally hit one, this is where you do want to use caution. If I'm wanting to hide all this, I hit more options, I hit hide, unhide. says, do you want to do it? I say yes. And then now I go down here, everything's hidden except for address 3 now, because it was already hidden. I accidentally selected it. So now I do want that hidden. So I do want to go back, select it, do more options, and then hit that hide, unhide, hit yes. And now you'll see here that they're all hidden from the review committee now, so they cannot see that. So that's how you hide specific questions within the application form. And of course, you would want to do that before you turn that over to your reviewers. Now, another level of hiding information is found with our Show for Fun feature. So what does that do? Well, the Show for Fun feature allows you to have your review process. So a lot of you, especially scholarship users, have a review process, and each scholarship has its own committee. And you need to know for each committee how scores were given on that scholarship. You want to see it per committee or per scholarship, the actual scoring is per scholarship. So on each scholarship, maybe you have questions within your application form that are pertaining just to a specific scholarship. So the only reviewers that need to see those questions are the ones on that specific committee for that scholarship. So we have a feature called Show for Fund that allows you to have it activated. That is something that we have to activate for you. It's not a site setting. You would need to reach out and do a support ticket on Zendesk to be able to have access to that, to ask for it. But once it's activated, it allows you to take specific questions, specific sections, hide them from all of the other reviewers except the ones that are pertaining to that specific scholarship. So this is by funding source. So if you have a funding source with a special committee and you have multiple review committees and you only need that funding source to be seen by the committee reviewing it, then the Show for Fund feature is very handy. So let me go to the site here to show you how this functions. So it can be set on the section level. And once it's activated, what it does is there's a toggle in the sections and the questions. Once you activate the toggle on the section level, it will no longer be present on the question level. So let me just kind of show you this. So in the section name, I don't have it on the section level. If I go into each individual question, you're going to see here that I have a Show for Fund, and then I can select the fund that it belongs to. If I exit out and go into another section, so say for instance, this DHG scholarship form, this is a form that only the committee that is reviewing DHG scholarship, that committee needs to see this form. All of my other scholarship committees do not need to see this form. Only the DHG committee team needs to see it. So what I can do is I could go over here to the edit and hide the entire section. If the Show for Fun feature is activated, you have this little section here, and you'll notice here there's a drop down, and this drop down has all of the scholarship funds that have been linked to my application form. And so if only the DHG committee needs to see this, then I need to come here to this drop down, select DHG. Maybe you have a section that multiple committees, maybe there's letters reference that need to be reviewed by multiple committees, and you can select multiple funds that can see those. But in this case, I only want DHG to see the specific Show for Fund. So I select it, I hit save and exit, and then when it gets to my review process on the task, when I build my task, I'm going to let the system know that that task belongs to that specific funding source. And then so when I assign the reviewers to that task, then it will only show the sections that are tied to that specific funding source. So when we show you how to set up a task, we'll also show you that when the Show for Fund's activated, how you add that fund that belongs to that specific task. So here I have my DHG scholarship. If I was to drill down into this now, since I've turned it on the section level, if I go into a question, you're going to notice I don't have that Show for Fund on the question level, because I've done it on the section level. As soon as you turn it on the section level, it turns it off on the question level, because the system knows the entire section is only for the DHG scholarship, not the individual question. Now, what if I have a section? So let's say I have an essay section. So within this section, I have essays for different scholarships. So I don't want to turn it off on the section level. I'm going to go in, I'm going to drill down on the section name. And so now I have all these essays. And when it gets to my review process, the MFC scholarship team does not need to see the WCFE scholarship essay or the SOO essay. So here is where I would do it on the question level, not the section level. So what I would do is on each of these questions, whatever scholarship or whatever funding source, if you don't call them scholarships, whatever the funding source is that's tied, and it's picking up those funding sources from the assigned application funds. So whatever funding source needs to see, the team that's reviewing that specific funding source needs to see this question, you need to go in, select the question. On that question level where it says show for fund, select the funding source that is tied to that specific question. And then you would do that, make sure you hit save, of course. You would do that on all of these. So then when it gets to the review process, my task card for the MFC scholarship, any reviewer assigned to that task card is only going to see this scholarship. They will not see this one, and they will not see this one. And then you go in and they would do this same with the WCFE and then the SOO scholarship. I would do all of those. I would go in and mark a show for fun for the fund that they belong to. And so that's what the show for fun feature does. So now that we've showed you how to kind of prepare your application form for your review committee, now we're going to talk about creating tasks. So creating tasks and the scoring rubric. So a task and scoring rubric is the same thing. A task card or a scoring rubric is where you provide a listing of questions to your reviewers for them to answer, so that you can go in as an admin then and see how they answered them, who's completed their assignments, if you have a scoring rubric tied to it, what's the scores that they've given. So that's what task cards do. And task cards are set up similar to how a section in an application form is. But this is a section. If you don't have show reviewer comments to applicants, this is a section the applicants don't see. But it's a section that looks just like a regular section on the application form. When you're looking at it from the admin's perspective, you're going in on the preview sheet, I should say, not the dashboard, but the preview sheet. There's this little section that's created with all the questions for the reviewers, and you can see each reviewer and how they answer those questions as an admin. And then depending on the toggles in the general information, reviewers can see each other's, or applicants can see the reviewers sections. So it's a section that the reviewers are given to answer questions. Now, you're not answering them, the reviewers are answering them. And it's also, sometimes people use it for internal staff. If you have multiple staff members and you want staff to go in and do an internal review, you can actually create a task card for your staff members to answer. And within that, this is when you would need to know who it was that reviewed that applicant and how they answered that question. Then you can create a task card, which is different from a staff section. Staff sections, it doesn't matter. You don't need to know who the staff person was, so you don't need to give them a special assignment. This is just if it's a task and you need to go, you want them to review, you want them to score, some type of process like that, where you're giving them an assignment of so many applicants. You need to know they've done those applicants. You need to know who they were given, and you need to know specifically how each staff member answered those questions and who that staff member was. Then you would do task cards for that. So anytime you have a process where you're turning it over to a reviewer or somebody and they need to see the application form, you have to create a task card. So if you're not printing them off and physically handing them to your reviewers, you want them to go online and see a review, and you give them the assignments. In order to do those assignments, you have to have a task card with at least one question of basically, did you review this applicant, yes or no? And then anybody that's been assigned to that task card and that applicant can then go in and answer that question and see that application form, and that's the reviewers. Of course, any admin, if they have an admin account, they can go in. If you've given them the authority, they can access the Manage Application screen and view applicants that way. So this is mainly for the review process, and a review process where you need to get scores and you need to see how you need to turn over a review to somebody that doesn't have anything but a reviewer access on your site. Okay, so how do you create these? So let's go to the site here. And we're going to we're in the home screen. We clicked on the application form. And of course, when you first get in there, you're here in Manage Applications. So we're going to jump over here to the evaluation process, because this is the applicants have applied and now you're ready to start evaluating those applicants. So we're going to go to evaluations. And here within evaluations, when you clone an application form, it will clone all of the prior task cards that were created from the prior application form. So if it's the same process year after year, same scorecards year after year, then this is very helpful. Plus, what you can do is maybe you have the same scorecard, but you want to remove something, or maybe you want to add something to it. It's just a very simple thing. Here's your existing scorecard. You go over here. This is where you add the questions to create edit. And then once you're here, you can just like you're building a section, you can add a question, you can come over here, hit the trash can, delete a question, go in, edit. Maybe you want to edit the rubric. If you have scoring rubrics, you might want to edit that. You can find that specific question that has the score tied to it, click on it, and make the edits as needed before turning it over to your team. But let's say maybe you have a new scholarship, or you're new to the process, so you don't even have any task cards created. How would you do that? Well, you can do one of two things. You can create a fresh task card where you would create just the name like you would a section. You give it a name. And then after you give it the name, you have to add each individual question separately. Or maybe you have a new scholarship or new funding source, I should say, a new funding source, and the task card you use is very similar to a task card you already have. So you don't want to recreate the wheel, you just kind of want to build off of that task card. So if you're like, you know what, I already have this one, I don't want to start from scratch, how do I do that? Well, you can clone tasks from within the same application or within other application forms that are within in your system as well. So let's start with cloning. So I have this scholarship. I have a new scholarship called the CS Scholarship. And it's very similar, my review process, to the AJG. So I'm just going to come up here to clone a task. Select the application I want to clone it from. So of course it's within the same application form. So I want to go to this application form. What's the task I want to clone? It's similar to this AJG, so I want to clone it. And then as soon as I do that, it gives a task name. Now this name, you have to give it, you don't want it to be the same name. You do want to give it a unique name. So this is my CS scholarship. And then the unique name is like an XML name. It's unique to this specific task card. So that way the system can differentiate between this one and this one. It's specifically unique. And there's two toggles here. And this is when you create one, which we'll do here in a minute. The display on review reports is the report in for the admin. That's what you're seeing, any reports that you're seeing. Now you can turn tasks on. So maybe you're looking at a task score and maybe you have certain steps. You have a review 1, a review 2, a review 3, and you do elimination. So maybe when you're in review 1, you want to see that task, but when you get to review 2 as an admin, you don't need to see it anymore. Well, you can take this toggle and you can turn it off so you can't see it, and it's only showing the tasks that you need to see at that moment. But right now we want to see them all. The display to reviewer is a very handy tool. Maybe you're working on your assignments. Maybe you've created all your user accounts for your reviewers. They can log in. They've been doing this for years. They have a user account already in the system. you're creating these tasks and the assignments, you don't want them going in right now and assigning or starting until you're completely done with all the assignments so that you know everything's been done. You can actually turn this off here so they can't see it. Or maybe you have multiple tasks and that committee's done reviewing, you've looked at their scoring, you've made your determinations, and you don't need to see, they don't need to get in anymore and make changes. You can turn it off for them as well once they're done so that they can't get in and make any additional changes or even see it. So that's for on the task level. Remember that one that was up here? That was the whole entire process for every single task. This is how you turn it off and on for each individual task. And of course, since I have the show for fun feature, this is where I say, okay, here's my task. And when you have the show for fun feature turned on, every task has to have a funding source tied to it. So in this illustration here, I've created my new scholarship. So I need to go out and find the actual scholarship that belongs to this one. So this is my scholarship. This is my task card. And then this is telling the system that only the review committee that's on this assignment, that has been assigned this task, will see the questions that have been triggered to be shown for this task. Now, one thing on that show for fun that I will mention that you might be wondering about is if you don't select anything, it defaults to all. So if nothing's selected, then every question will be present. It's only if you select it, then once you make a selection, it will only be present for that specific scholarship. Okay, so now I've got this created, so I'm going to hit save and exit. And then once I've created it, it's going to put it to the end of this line here. And then here's my task name. And then of course, if I go over here to create edit, you're going to notice it's got all the questions that were in that original section or that original task that I created. Now, how do you create a new one? Maybe you don't have one that you can clone. So to create a new task, I'm just going to come up here real quick, hit create task. And then here, you don't have it where you have to select what you're cloning it from. You're just going to put here the name of the task. And then you, of course, got to give it that unique name that we talked about, like an XML. You can put the order. So maybe I wanted to put that as the first one in line. Order is important. If you have multiple levels, maybe you want to say, okay, I have level 1. I do a process of elimination. I do level 2, level 3. Then you can put order 1, 2, 3. That's where the order comes into play. And then, of course, here, display on review reports. It does default when you're creating a task to display to reviewer, won't be selected. And then you can leave it unselected till you're ready to turn it over to them. And then, of course, you do have to select the fund. So I'm just going to grab one here real quick and then hit save and exit. And then now that's created. Now, if I go over here to create edit on a new task, you'll see on a new task, it's empty. There's no questions yet. So you just over here, you start clicking add a question. So remember, this is just like building questions in a section. You would hit add a question. It's going to open up a dialog box for you to add that question, and then you build that question accordingly. And then make sure and hit save and exit to save that question. And then you just do that for all your questions. So I'm going to go ahead and exit and then go back to the one that we just cloned to this CF scholarship. I'm going to go into this score sheet here and talk about some key elements you need to know about when you're building task cards. So when you're building task cards, of course, you're wanting, these are questions for your reviewers to answer. And if you're building a task card and you want it to pick up scores, so you want the system to look at this question, and depending on how your reviewer answered that question, you want the system to add a score to it. This is for the reviewers. When building task cards for your review committee and you need a score to be tallied by the system, there's 2 question types that you can use to create the scores. You can use a numeric question field to where you give them the question. The type is numeric. They type in a number. The system knows it's a numeric question. I need to add that number. Or you can build a drop-down question type. And within that drop-down, you have the listing of all of the possible answers that they can have to that. So like here, you can see I have an additional essay question, or this easy spelling grammar. I have a 0, 1, 3, and 5. So depending on how they answer these questions, depending on which one they select, it's going to add a 5 or a 10 or a 15. But there's a specific way you have to build this in order for this to function correctly. So I'm going to click in on this question here. And I'm going to go over here. It's a drop down. I'm going to go over here to the values. And when you create this, you got to add the values. So what the system's going to look at is it's going to look at this value column. If it sees a number in this value column, and this is the one that the reviewer selected, it's going to pick up this number, 15. If they select this one, it's going to put 10. If they select this one, it's going to put 5. If they select this one, it's going to put 0. Now, something that's very important is you have a label column and you have a value column. The label column is what the person answering the question, the reviewer, is seeing. They see the label. However, the system is looking at the value. So when you're creating these, so let's say I wanted to add another one. I'm just going to put test, and I'm going to put 20. Okay. And over here, I do not want to put any text, any symbols, anything in this specific field, because if I do anything other than a numeric item, it will not add that as a score. So if I went over here and did test 20, it's not going to pick it up. So what I have to do is make sure I do 20, and then once you add that, of course, hits, the plus sign, and then hit save and close, and then make sure that that's saved. I don't want to do that, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to cancel. But you always want to make sure that this value has a numeric and absolutely no text within that other than a numeric item. No symbols, no spaces, no parentheses, nothing like that within that. Okay, so that's an important element. So that's the only two question types. If you need a score, you want to use a numeric or a drop down with the values as numeric, and it will pick that up. Now, something else you're going to see here is I have a field called scoring comment, but I can't access it. The reason I can't access it is because when you build a scorecard, only one question within that scorecard can be a scoring comment. So what one is my scoring comment? So if I scroll down, I look at this column, I look down, I have this question right here. What's my overall recommendation? It says yes. What's the purpose of this? Well, when you're looking at the results and you're looking at those result reports, there's a column in those reports on the online viewing that says comments. And when you hover over that section on each individual applicant, it will give you whatever one is the scoring comment question. It will show you the replies that all of your reviewers had for that specific question. So this one, of course, overall recommendation. I'm having them give my their top 5 choices. So I want to see how each one quickly. I don't want to have to click in at every review and see it. I want to see a quick picture of how they all recommended this individual, and I can do so by using this as my scoring comment question, because that's my scoring comment. Now let's say I don't want this one to be my scoring comment. I want another one to be my scoring comment, like maybe this question. Well, if you've already got one as a scoring comment, then in order to remove it from one to the other, you have to go on the original one. So I'm clicking it. Unselecting, see there's that little blue box right here, unselecting it, and then hitting save and exit. And then once I do that, right now, none of my questions are the scoring comment, so I can pick whichever one I want to be that scoring comment. But I'm gonna go, and if I go in, you'll see now on another question, it's now open. So until I pick a question, it's going to be open. So I'm gonna select, now let's just go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and select this one. And then I would hit save and exit, and it would make that one that specific question. But since I'm here, I want to show you something. This is another question type, a specific question type that's available for the review process task cards only. So when building your questions, you're going to notice a couple of additional question types, and one being this reviewer approval. And so this is a specific question type that creates a field that has 3 replies. I'm going to go ahead and hit save and exit on this so you can see. I'm going to go out so I can preview it. And so I'm going to go in here. Let's just go into this one because I know it's in this one. Here's the preview to view the questions and what it looks like to the applicant. And so that reviewer approval question type, what it does is creates this field right here. Reviewer approval. It's a reviewer approval, a question type, and it gives 3 results: approved, not approved, and need more information. So that's just another quick little question build. If you have this and you want, this is the 3 questions you asked, you can't change these. These are static. This is what the 3 are at this time. And so that's what it would do, is when you create that question type, it automatically creates the field with those 3 selections available. Okay, so that is pretty much building scorecards. Let me just look at my notes here. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is take a break right now and then turn this over to Maureen, and she'll answer any questions that may have come about while we were in this portion. It's all yours, Maureen.
Thank you, Christine. Okay, we do have a few questions. One of the questions is, we do not have a scorecard. Do we need to have a scorecard in order to give access to our reviewers to see the applications? Yes, because it's the scorecard that's connecting your applicants' applications with the reviewers. So that's like the link, let's just say. So as Christine has already mentioned, all that you need to do is maybe add one question in there. Maybe there could be just a scoring comment, or maybe it could be just, have you reviewed the application completely? 100%, yes or no. Just one question and that is it. But without a scorecard, the reviewers will not be able to see the application. You have to remember that. Okay. Then there's another question that is a constant. I think all of us really need to know if we can add conditional logic, because we have categories in our scorecard. Can I add conditional logic so categories, the various categories of scoring could open up accordingly? No, unfortunately, we do not have conditional logic, and we have spoken to our team. The reason we cannot have categories in our scorecard or conditional logic in scorecards is because there's calculation that happens at the end. Now, if we add calculation plus conditional logic, it is not going to give accurate results. But we are working on it, and we'll get back to you when we have something ready for you. And again, okay, this is a question that we will cover later. I think most of these questions are coming in later. Just give me a second here. Okay, can the label and the value, as Christine has shown with the drop down options, when you give the score next to the question, right, with the drop downs, there was a label and there was a value. Can the label and value be the same? Yes, absolutely. The label can be the text as well as a number, and if you notice, there were 2 parentheses. So that can work also. If you want to just have numbers on both under label as well as values, you can keep it plain and simple. The label is just so that your reviewers know if there's a scale, they can work on the scale and give the score accordingly. And okay, I think, oh, sorry, there's another question. What is a reviewer approval question type? Does this move the applicants into the awarding, or does it trigger something at the back end? Just now, as Christine was talking about the reviewer approval question with the options approved, not approved, and need more information, there is no workflows attached to this question at the back end. It's fairly simple, just 3 options. The admin has to take it from there, and maybe if they need more information, then you have to request for more information from the applicants. But there's no workflow at the back end. So it's just 3 options that your reviewers are answering for you. Just give me a second. Reviewer approval is done. Reviewer scorecard. I think I've covered all the questions, Christine. Back to you. Thank you, everyone.
And thank you so much, Maureen, for going over those questions for us. So moving along, so we've got our task cards created. Everything's ready. So the next step then is we need to start creating our committees and our assignments. So the first step, of course, we have to create the committee. So if we're here in evaluation still, this evaluation tab, and now we're going to go down to where it says manage committees. Now, before making assignments in the committee section, the committee members have to have user accounts in the system. So before a best practice, before you start creating your committees and adding members to those committees, you will want to go to the administration and create their user accounts so that once you get to this portion of the setup, you have all of them in the system ready to go and ready to be assigned. But they do have to have the assignments. It's best practice, I should say, to have the assignments of their user accounts. They have their user profiles created before you start making assignments and before you start creating the committees. They need that user profile to be able to do that in the user setup. So once they have a user profile, you can go here to manage committees, select that. And then of course, again, this is something else that clones. So this was a cloned application. So all of the committees I had before are here. So of course, if you're cloning an application and you have these committees, more than likely the committees changed. Sometimes it stays the same, but sometimes maybe it has some changes. So you can go in on the committees that you already have and make adjustments. But before we talk about that, I want to show you how to create a brand new committee. So of course we have that CS scholarship, and that's a new scholarship. So I have a new committee to go along with that. So my first step then here is to go to add committee. I'm going to give it a name. And I'm going to hit save and exit. And now I have this screen here. So you'll notice on this screen, this is the reason why the user accounts have to be created first, because over here on the left is going to give me a listing of my admins and my reviewers that have been given user profiles in that administration user setup area. They're already here. They're in this listing. And then what I can do, I can come here and filter if I wish, or if the list isn't that long, I can just kind of scroll through and find the individuals I want to add. Now, don't be alarmed though, if maybe you forgot one or two of your reviewers, because we do have this here where you can actually create a user account for them by clicking on the click here. And what this does is opens up that screen to create a user account for them. This could get, kind of tedious if you have several to do at a time. That's why we always recommend do that setup user, do that import. They're imported in, and you can come here and they're already ready. But this is helpful if you forgot somebody and you just want to quickly add one or two users. You can do the click here, create the account, save and exit. If you have more than one, create the next one and go for it. But so that's a nice little quick link that takes you to that same screen. But of course, here I have all my users. So I'm going to go ahead and find the users I want to add to this. Now you can select multiple at a time. In order to select them and put them in that committee, you do have to click on them to select them. And then if I have multiple, I would want to hit my control key. Hold on here, not my control key, my shift. And then I could scroll through the list and select more as I go along. So maybe I want to add that one. Let's see, I want to add Charles. That's the shift. Hit the control to do one. Sorry. And then I go back up here and I want to add that one, hitting control and lifting up before I scroll so it doesn't shrink the screen. That one. And then let's see, let's add Archie to this committee as well. So let's put, and then once you select them, so I've got them selected, you can see I've got multiple selected, hit the directional arrow, move them to the right, and then once I hit continue, they'll be a part of this specific committee. So I'm going to hit continue. And now if I scroll down, I should have my committee, page 2 here. There it is, and there's the committee. Now, let's say I look at this and I realize I added Charles, but I shouldn't have. Or maybe I have my existing committees because I cloned and I realized Charles is no longer going to be on that committee. How do I remove him? Well, I can go here. I can click on the committee name. And once I click that committee name, I go back to the screen and I do the opposite. I select who I want to remove over here and then hit the arrow to move them back to the left, and then make sure and hit continue, and then they're no longer on that specific committee. Now, anytime you remove somebody from a committee, never remove someone from a committee once you've done the assignments, which is the next step I'm going to show you. Once you do the assignments, you need to remove the assignments first. Then you can come here to the committees and remove that committee member. You do not want to do that, though, until you've removed their assignments. That's a very important step. Remove the assignments first, and then you can remove them from the committee member. But this is a brand new application. It hasn't even been assigned, no assignments have been done yet. So feel free, if you haven't made any assignments, you can move and delete whoever you wish at this time. If I go back out, whoops, no, cancel, cancel. And maybe I have a clone and I just want to change the name of the committee. All you need to do here is just hit the edit, and then that'll open up the screen to change the committee name. And then you make your change, and then as soon as you hit save and exit, click OK, it'll take you back to the screen. Okay. Or if you notice when I was in there, maybe I want to change the name and reassign certain members. I can do that, hit this assign members, and that will take me to that screen as well. And then I can make my adjustments before the assignments have been made, of course. Okay. So that's adding committees. So now that we've added committees, we've created our tasks, we've created our committees, we're now ready to do the assignments. So how do we do the assignments? We've created our committees. Now we're assigning our applicants to the committees. So the next step, we're going to move along. We're still in evaluations. We created our task, created our committees. So of course, the next step in the process on this task line, this menu bar here, is assignments to committees. And this is where we do the assignment screen. So this is a screen, and the only applicants it will pick up. So when you're selecting a status, the only applicants that are going to show on this screen that you can choose from are anyone who has submitted or forward in the process. So if they're submitted under committee review, any place that's left their pending submission, they will not show up on this. Okay, so that's important to know that when you come here, if nobody's showing up, everybody's still pending submission, that's why, because nobody has submitted their application form. So until they've officially submitted, it will not allow you to make any assignments here on this screen. So how do you do this assignment? Well, the first thing is, what's the task you're going to be assigning? So I'm going to come up here, and in my assignment process today, I need to, let's say I want to do my DHG scholarship. Okay, so this is my DHG scholarship. I actually have a committee specifically for this scholarship. So the next thing I like to do is select my committee, just so I can keep my thoughts straight. So I come down here to select committee, and I find the committee that's going to be doing this review. It's the DHG committee. So now I have my task, I have my committee, and I have the members that I have assigned in the assignments to committees here. Then I have some other choices to make. So the first one is status. I always leave this to all because I don't have to think, especially if you're doing multiple funding sources. Leave it to all, because an applicant could be matched in one funding source and then they get matched, they're in another funding source, and they're in all these different committees because they've matched to multiple funding sources. So if I was to come here and say select status of submitted, as soon as an applicant is assigned to this task and a reviewer, their status is no longer going to be submitted. It's going to go to under committee review. So when you're doing multiple funding sources, it gets kind of confusing. Are they under committee review? Have they been in a fund already? Have I assigned them in another task? I don't know. So all I do to just get around that thinking process, since I know anybody submitted or under committee review is going to show up, I just leave this to all. And then that way it's going to give me all of my applicants, whether they're submitted or under committee review, because they could be under committee review from another task, but I need them to appear in this one. So when you start getting down here, it's only going to show those applicants based on what these selections up here are. So, and it's for this task, and I need them to be in this process. So if they're under committee review, I need them as well as even if they weren't, they were submitted. So I'm going to leave this to all. That way it doesn't confuse anything. It's going to give everybody that's in any of these statuses going forward. You're going to see you don't see pending submission here. It's just these statuses here are the ones that it's, if I put all, if they're at any of those statuses, it's going to go ahead and appear. Select status detail, though, can be very helpful, especially if you have that scenario where you have a process of elimination. You do one review, determine a handful of applicants that need to move forward. If you have status details, you can tag them with that status detail of approved for level 2, because then you can come here and say, only give me the applicants that have the status detail of approved level 2, or whatever you call it. Or like here, you can see we have an initial staff review and then a final review, things like that. So that way, if once they're approved to go to level 2, then I could have a status detail approved level 2, put that on them, and the manage applicants assign that status detail to them. Then when I come here, I could filter so I only get those applicants for that level that I need it for. So that's where status details can come into play. The next thing that's important for a one-to-many process, when you are matching applicants to funding sources and you're reviewing by funding source, so you only need to know the applicants that matched to that funding source, then you do have a filter here, funding opportunities. So in my scenario here, I have my DHG scholarship. The committee is my DHG committee. So, of course, I only want the applicants that have been matched to the DHG scholarship. And when I say matched, it's looking at the application settings and it's looking at that managed funds criteria and matching applicants to those funds based on how they answered those questions and how that criteria was built. And it's finding the applicants that matched to that funding source. So then when I come here, when I do my task, I can select my task, I can select my committee, I can say funding opportunities. As soon as I select that, it's going to give me a list of all the attached funds. And then I can say only give me the applicants that matched to this scholarship and click OK. And so now when I get down here to the display applicants, I'm only going to get the applicants that match to this funding source. So now we're going to talk about what happens when I hit the display applicants. So prior to hitting this display applicants, there is this nice little application worksheet. You can click this and this will give you all of a worksheet of all the applicants that have not been assigned yet for this task. And then you can maybe do it, it's an Excel spreadsheet. You can take that Excel spreadsheet, do your working outside of that, and then come back here and start making your assignments. Or you can just let the system do it, and I'll show you a way to keep track of things here as well. But sometimes it's easier to put it on an Excel spreadsheet, especially if you have a lot of moving parts in this review and who's getting it, how many's getting it, that sort of thing. Then you can always use this worksheet, and this will give you everyone that has not been assigned yet. Once they've been assigned, they won't be in the worksheet. It only gives you the ones of the unassigned individuals. So right now I have my scholarship and I'm saying, give me the applicants that have not been assigned. Now remember, each assignment that this is looking at is per task. So if they were assigned in another task, they're going to show up here if they haven't been assigned in this task. So then within this task, give me the applicants that have not been assigned to a committee member. So it's looking at the applicants, looking at the matching, seeing who do they match to. And as soon as I hit display, it's going to give me the listing of those individuals. And I don't have any assignments yet, because if I look down here at the bottom, it will start showing assignments, which you'll see here in a minute. So right now I have 12 applicants that match to that funding source that I need to assign. So how can I do that? So here's 15 members. I have 12 applicants. There's different ways you can do it. You could select all, hit save, and everybody gets everybody. But maybe you don't want that scenario. So I'm going to remove that. Maybe you want the system, so you could do a random selection here, to pick 3 applicants to give to Crystal, and then select and hit save assignment. Or maybe you want 3 applicants to get assigned randomly to 3 reviewers. So if you use the random, you click go, and it will randomly select 3 applicants. I click go over here. It'll maybe randomly select 3. So what you're saying is I want all of my Julia's going to have 3 reviews, Michaela's going to have 3 reviews, and Amber's going to have 3 reviews. And then as soon as you click this save assignment, so I've got 12 applicants right now, unassigned. If I hit save assignment, it's going to have unassigned applicants, and it's now only going to have 9. But you're going to notice over here the members is still the same. It doesn't drop those off. It only drops off the applicants. And so what it's saying, there's been 9 there's been 3, because we had 12 to begin with, that have been assigned. So now if I change this to assigned applicants, there's the 3 that were assigned. If I go back to all, it's going to be 12 because it's giving me assigned or unassigned. So then once you make your assignments, that will be down here at the bottom, and you'll be able to see the assignments that you have made and who got those assignments here. If you realize, you know what, I know Caroline, I don't want to give this individual to Caroline, you can come here and unselect, and then you just unselect like this, select that reviewer's name, and then hit remove assignment, hit yes, and then that will remove that assignment. And now you can see if I do unassigned here, display, it's still showing 9 because I just removed the reviewer Caroline, but that applicant still had an assignment. So you can come here too, you can use this filter, and I can filter by the task names. So like once you start doing this assignment piece, you got multiple scholarships, and you might see, I need to know who did I give to the DHG scholarship to. You can come here and hit filter, and then it'll only give you those individuals. Or maybe I want to see, okay, I know Colleen, who all did I give her? I can come here, select the committee, and then what committee she's on. There she is. And then I can say, give me just her assignments, and then it will show me her assignments. And then if I wanted to, I can select this and remove hers as well. Now, you don't want to remove tasks once they start scoring. You do want to make sure those scores get removed before they start scoring. And then, like I said, you always work backwards. Scores are gone. They have so let's say Caroline came to me and said, hey, I know this individual. You're not doing a blind review process. There's a conflict of interest. You need to remove her. Make sure Caroline hasn't scored, or say, Caroline, have you scored? She says no. Then you can come here, remove her assignment, go to the committees, add your new committee member, remove her, then come back here and make the assignment to the new individual. So that's how you Okay, so I'm going to remove this all so that we can get back to seeing some assignments at the bottom of the screen here. Okay, so now here's our assignments. We have all our assignments here at the bottom of the page. Now, before I go any further, one thing, let's say I'm done with this scholarship, and so I want to move to the next one. One thing that I see people do is they'll come up here and they'll change AJG scholarship. They'll come here, they'll change this to the scholarship they want that committee to review that. And then they come here to where it says funding source, because they're still on the screen, and they mark it and they click OK. But what they forget to do is undo the one that was prior, because they're still in this process and they're just kind of doing everybody at once. So you always want to make sure you don't pick up more than one of those funding sources, unless they're both, maybe a committee reviews multiple scholarships, then yes, you would select multiple. Maybe you have this scholarship, this scholarship, this scholarship, this scholarship, all being reviewed by a specific committee. Then you could then, of course, select all of those and get all the applicants that match to all of those. You can do that. But if you're just doing one at a time and it's just a committee for that one specific one, you do want to make sure to put this to none, then select your new one, and then go ahead with your process. Now, if you go out and come back in, it'll clear this. But what a lot of people do, they're doing all their assignments at once. They're on the screen and they're quickly making assignments, and then they forget to unselect the prior one, and then they accidentally assign applicants because they didn't. They're displaying because you changed the task, because remember it's by task. So they're going to display again. And so now you're like, well, how did they get in there? They shouldn't have been a part of the scholarship. It's because you forgot to unselect them when you were doing the assignments. Okay, so now that you've made the assignments, your next step then, you've made the assignments and you're ready to start the review. So your next step is going to be notifying your reviewers. So how can you do that? There's a couple different places you can notify. So I'm here in the assignment screen still, and you're going to see a little button over here that says notify reviewers. That's exactly what it's used for. You can come over here, select the reviewer, hit. And if you have multiple reviewers, you can select multiple here. It is per page. So of course, if you have multiple pages, you might want to put it to all if you want to get everybody, or if you want to just do that page, you can, whatever is simplest for you. Or filter that reviewer, send theirs, do another reviewer, send theirs, however you wish. You can do multiple at a time. Then you can come over here, whoever you've selected, hit notify reviewers, and then that will show you up here who it's going to send it to. It's an admin. It's going to send it to this reviewer. That's who I selected. But you're going to notice here, if I start typing, I don't have a field for the reviewer name. I can't say Dear Lacey. So how do I get that field? I only have applicant fields here. Well, you can come up here to email templates, and there's a specific template designed out there that has the field, and it's here, committee applications are ready for review. As soon as I select that one, you're going to notice these fields here, these 3 fields right here are for the reviewer. So it will address it to the reviewer in this case. So I can put Dear Reviewer, Dear First Name. I have this template, and then it's going to fill in the fields based on the reviewer I selected. And then you can hit Send Now, and it'll send it immediately, or I can hit Schedule, and it'll allow me to schedule it for a specific date for this email to go out to those reviewers. So that's one way. That's individual reviewers. But maybe you just want to go ahead and send a quick message to all the committees of that team, that committee, that their reviews are ready. You can go to Manage Committees. And in Manage Committees, you're also going to see a Notify button here. And if you select this and then hit Notify, it's going to send a message to everyone on that specific committee. And of course, there's no templates you can pull, but if you wanted to, you could just put a quick something like this, and then down here, and this first name, last name would be then those individuals' names. I'm just going to throw this in here real quick, just as an illustration here. And then you could just type a quick message, something like reviews are ready. Review, please go in, whatever, and then hit send, and then send that immediately to that entire committee team. So that's how you could do everyone at once in that committee. Instead of having to find them, select in that assignment piece, you can come here and send it to everyone. So that is how to notify committee members. Those two areas are the only places where you can actually do that. And any place else is going to send it to the applicant. So now that leaves us to the final piece. So everything that we just talked about is going to a review committee. A committee member's looking at it. If there's scores, the committee member's selecting the question that they want the score to be. But we also have a feature with automated scoring. And that's where there's no interaction by a reviewer. It's all automatic, and it's based on the question that the applicant answered. So like maybe you have a GPA question. Depending on the GPA that they receive, they're going to get specific scores. If it's between maybe a 2 and a 3, you're going to give them a 5. If it's a 4.0, you're going to give them an extra score of 10. Or maybe you're doing financial reviews and you have some of their financial scores, their something from their SARs or something like that, and you want to give them a higher score so that you know, okay, they've got a financial need. I need to give them a higher score so that their results come up higher. So to build automated scoring can be per fund. So each individual fund you have, since this is a one-to-many, can have its own automated scoring system set up for it. So each one if you have a one-to-many process, you have to set it up for every single one of those funds so that when you're looking at the results by fund, it pulls up that automated score for that specific fund. So to create automated scoring, we're still here in the evaluations of that application form. And I'm going to go up here to manage automated scoring. And this is the screen you see. Now, as you start selecting funding sources, so if I select this AJG, if I had cloned this application, it's going to clone all this data over, and then I can come here and make my adjustments. Maybe I might want to remove one. I can come over here, add one, and so forth. So this create automated scoring criteria creates one line of criteria. So as you can see in my illustration here, I have the same question multiple times because each question has multiple replies that the applicant could answer. So when you're picking up a score on how they replied, you do want to put the score for each answer that they have. So like here, this is the 4.0, the 3 to 3.9. This is the 2.29. There's the cumulative, and then there's this one here. There's two different GPAs I'm actually picking up, so I'm wanting to give them scores based on how those were answered. Or here's that SAI on a SAR, greater than 0, less than 1. I want to give specific scores. So that's what they look like. And of course, like I said, each value that they can answer, because this is usually like drop downs or numeric fields or something where the answer's been forced on them. It's usually not a text question because of course they can type. It's going to be anything like a checkbox, a drop down, a numeric, multiple choice questions that these are being built off of. So let's say I want to also, maybe I have this DSS scholarship and I have my values. And this specific one is the same scoring rubric for that new scholarship I just built. So I can actually come here and clone from one scholarship to the other the automated score. So what's the source? What's the one I want to clone from? So the DSS is where I'm at. And I want to put that on my new fund, this one here. I'm going to clone it. And if I clone it, it will give me, if I go now to the Christine, it's going to put that exact same one on Christine. Now, if there was anything on Christine, it's going to overwrite what was there. So if there's one there, you do want to use caution because it's not cloning just one line, it's cloning the entire series of criteria for that automated scoring. Now, if I just want to add it, maybe I want to add a line. Let me just go to this one. I think it's this one. Yeah. So here I'm looking and I realize, you know what? I don't have the 4.0. I don't have the score for the 4.0. How would I do that? So I'm here. I can actually, I don't need to recreate the wheel. I can just come here within this one and duplicate this line because it's the same question. I can just hit duplicate. There it is. There's the minimum maximum. If it's a 4.0, I want to put 4 to 4. or I can come here, change the condition to equals 4 if I wanted to, equals, and then the value 4. Just that you can see, you can choose different selections depending on the question type. The system knows, okay, it's a number, so here's certain conditions you can use for a number. And then I can put the score of 10, hit save and exit. And now I have a 10 on, if it equals 4, then they get a 10. So that's how you do that. And then if you want to create a brand new one, you just come over here, create automated scoring. And then you find, okay, I want to create a new one. This is the funding source it belongs to. Where's the section that the question is housed? What's the question? So maybe I want to do it on an essay question. I'm just going to pick one here. That's not a good essay. Is not good because we want it to be a drop down. So let's go to financial information. And oh, let me find one that would be like a yes, no, or drop down. I thought I just saw one and then it flashed away. Okay, maybe annual income. And then I can put equals, or that's not a good one for some reason. That must not be a numeric field. Sorry, I need to find one here real quick here. Thought I saw. Do you have a FAFSA? Okay, let's just go here to academic here because I know. Okay, and just pick up the GPA. And then there's a numeric field, and then we can just do this. We'll just put 2.99, even though it already has it. We'll give it a score of 5, hit save and exit. And now we have 2 of them here. And if I needed to delete one, I can come up here and then I can delete it. Yes. Okay, so now you have what you need here. So that's how easy it is. Just hit create automated scoring. Now remember, it's just on the specific funding source. Now let's say I want to create a score and it needs to go on all of the funding sources. Of course, if I don't select a funding source and I create a score, it will put that on all of them, but that's only the first time you go in. Any other time I'd have to go in on each individual one, and then I would have to clone it, of course, when I would have to use that cloning process to clone it to the other scholarships. And then here you can see you can do one source, but then you can clone it. But remember, it's going to clone the entire series, not just the one question, the entire thing that you're building. So if you have criteria that's on every single fund, I would recommend build that first. Then once you build it, clone it to all the scholarships, and then go in on each individual scholarship by selecting here and adding the additional scores for just that pertain to just that specific scholarship. So do it for the one that pertains to all. Then once you've got that one done, clone it to all, and then come here and then build it going forward. But of course, like I said, now that they're built, if I try to clone from one to another, it's going to override with the one that I'm cloning it from and erase what was on the existing one. So when you're doing that, you do really have to think, what is it supposed to be in the final result? And then this is automated scoring, and then there's a report that will actually tally up all of these that we'll talk about in the next session. So that's all I have for today. So I'm going to go ahead and stop here and turn it over to Maureen and let her answer any final questions that came in. It's all yours, Maureen.
Thank you so much, Christine. So one of the questions is, can I use custom filters with the scholarship plus adding another question or a couple more questions when we are doing the assignments. Christine, can we go to the evaluation assignments to committee screen so everyone knows what the client is asking for here? So there we have filter by, there's custom filters and funding opportunities, right? So what we mean here is, can we use both custom filter with the questions or and custom filter with funding opportunities? That is the scholarship name plus add one more or two more questions to the filters. No, if you notice, you can only select either one of these two options. It's not a checkbox, so you cannot select both. So you cannot, unfortunately, you cannot do that. So no, you cannot add the custom filters plus the funding opportunities while assigning applicants. Okay. Can automatic emails be sent out once an assignment has been made to the evaluators or the reviewers? No, you will have to send out manual emails after assignments have been done. So, because if you're making more than one assignment per reviewer, if there's going to be 10 or 12, you do not want to send out multiple emails, right? Also, we want the administrator to have full access or full control over what emails are being sent out from the system or not. Okay, so that's why we are not automatically sending out any emails from the system. Uh, can I have the manual scoring plus the automated scoring, or can I have only one of those two? Now, if you notice, you can have both. Under evaluations, you also have automated scoring plus the scorecard setup. The difference here is that automated scoring does not require human interference. You're already presetting the information, presetting the values, and associating them with a score. So there's no human involvement there. Whereas a scorecard or a task that we are creating requires people to actually come in and score the applicant. So there's more like the reviewer task setup could be more like Christine has mentioned, for open-ended questions where there are no options given to the applicant, more so likely for the essays. With scholarships, essays are extremely important and we cannot have the system read the essays, right? So that's when a manual scoring can come in. Automated scoring is more mostly meant for, preset values that are already present in the system. Just one last question is, my reviewers are unable to see the assigned applicants. Of course, we will cover the manage applicants, managing the evaluation process, but because we were talking about the setup of the process, you have to check for four things in the system. Number one, does your reviewer have access to the website? Meaning, has their account been created in the system? Number two, make sure that the user is active. Under administration, set up users. So two things, check for the access if an account has been created. Number two, if the user is active. Number three is if the, just let me go back here, is the committee has, if is this user given access to the committee? Are they part of the committee list also or not? And lastly, you have to check if the application settings say that the application is viewable to that specific committee or the reviewers. So a couple of settings you have to make sure that are present. If you still are unable to understand, please open a ticket with us on Zendesk and we'll take care of that for you. We'll look into that at the back end. Can I create automated scoring criteria myself? Yes, absolutely. The handouts contain all the help guides, training videos, FAQs, everything is given. But if at any point you need any help with the setup of the automated scoring or a reviewer task, please reach out to us and we'll help you set that up for you. Okay. So that's from my side, Christine. Back to you. Thank you, everyone.
And thank you so much, Maureen, for answering those questions. Great job on that, as always. And so that brings us to the end of our session today. So, of course, with all of our sessions, there are resource guides available that cover in more detail some of the topics that we covered. Of course, we only have this limited time to cover some of the things, so we can't go into every single detail, but those guides will take you step by step on how to do a lot of these features. And then, of course, getting this handout will allow you to hit the click here, and that will take you directly to those resources from the handout that you've received. So again, we want to thank everyone for attending today's session, and there will be a recording of this meeting in your inbox by tomorrow. You should have an email with the link to access this recording. And so if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our client support team via Zendesk by giving your URL or selecting the below URL, and of course giving us your URL and your site information, and then asking for a client support specialist for assistance to maybe do a process review with you to determine if any of the functionality we talked about with you today, if it's something that would be a benefit to you, or any other thing. If you have a question about how to something that we did that you're trying to do and you're struggling with, please feel free to enter that support ticket and ask for a client support specialist to help you. And again, this is the URL that takes you to that. And of course, also if you hit the click here, that should take you to the guides as well. And then you can access the support ticket if you are logged in to as an admin on a support site, then you'll be able to enter a support ticket there as well. So again, thank you everyone for attending. Our next session will be on the 8th of April, and it will be covering how to manage the evaluation process, and that's for a one-to-one. And then in April 22nd is when we'll talk about managing the evaluation process for the one-to-many. So when we're talking about managing, that means you've done your assignments, they're in the review process. How do you monitor all that and see the results? So if you're a one-to-many user, it's going to be on the 22nd. And if you're a one-to-one user, it's going to be on the 8th. So again, thank you everyone for attending today. And we look forward to seeing you at our next session. Everyone have a wonderful week. Take care. Thank you.